David Muir, ABC's World News Tonight, America's most watched newscast. Now streaming same day with all the breaking news of the day on Disney+. Most watched, most trusted. Now on Disney+ every night.
Tonight, several breaking stories. The two teenagers in body armor allegedly charging into that Islamic Center. And in New York City tonight, the woman who plunged into a searing manhole, a witness saying she was screaming, "I'm dying." First tonight, the breaking developments. Late today, police revealing it was two heavily armed teenagers in body armor, carrying shotguns, rifles, and handguns into that Islamic Center. Children not far away, the security guard who took them on. In New York City, the horrific and deadly scene in Midtown Manhattan. A woman opening her car door and disappearing down an open manhole, falling into the intense heat below the street service. How this happened. Tonight, the tornadoes touching down, damaging winds and severe storms set to hit again this evening. And records broken in Philadelphia. Intense heat in New York City and Boston. Ginger Z is here. Alarming news tonight about the deadly Ebola outbreak. An American doctor infected now raced to another country for emergency help. The case is now spiking. Tonight, the extraordinary order from the Justice Department barring the IRS from investigating President Trump, his sons and their companies and their taxes. Tonight, the murder case in the Northeast. A man convicted of killing his brother and his brother's wife and children, setting their home on fire, then setting his own home on fire, his family inside, to make it look like the whole family had been targeted. What the judge has now decided. Tonight, major primaries being watched in this country. President Trump taking aim at one of his top political targets, Republican Congressman Thomas Massie. Dramatic new video tonight showing the horrific crash of a UPS cargo plane. Less than 1 week after President Trump's visit to China, tonight, Vladimir Putin arriving for his face-to-face talks with President Xi. The desperate search back here at home for a missing 20-year-old along the East Coast in the ocean. And what's been spotted tonight for the first time in more than 100 years in an American national park.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight with David Muir.
Good evening. We begin tonight with breaking news. Authorities late today revealing chilling new details on that horrific attack on an Islamic Center in San Diego, now describing two teenage gunmen who they say charged into the facility in body armor and multiple weapons, killing 3 people, including a hero security guard who tried to take them on and was killed. Late today, police now revealing the heavily armed teenagers, 17 and 18 years old, were carrying shotguns, rifles, and handguns as they stormed the center. The security guard, a father of 8, confronting them and opening fire. Police say the suspects came within 15 feet of some 140 children inside at the time. Those children were raced to safety, and that hero guard is now credited with slowing down the gunman. Tonight, what we're now learning about the mother of one of the suspects, her urgent warning to police before the shooting. And tonight, we have just learned that police did have prior contact with one of those suspected shooters. ABC's Trevor Ault on the scene, leading us off again tonight.
Tonight, authorities have revealed the 2 shooters were wearing body armor and camouflage, armed with shotguns, rifles, and handguns when they stormed the Islamic Center of San Diego, shooting and killing 3 people, including a hero security guard. And they live-streamed the attack using what appear to be helmet cameras. That security guard, now identified as Amin Abdullah, a father of 8, seen smiling in this recent video, spotted the suspects and opened fire. And authorities are convinced he helped save lives.
You can see the security guard reach for his radio and put out the lockdown protocol. The security guard then continued to engage in a gun battle with these 2 suspects.
The shooters made it inside the front entrance of a building just feet away from school children.
I went inside the closet with my whole class. We heard like 12 or 16 gunshots.
Police say the suspects went room by room and found no one. They headed back outside to the parking lot to confront and kill Mansour Kazeha, who ran a shop in the mosque for 40 years, and Nader Awad, whose wife taught at the school, and he was the first to call 911. Police believe the suspects heard the sound of rapidly approaching sirens and fled the scene. This new video from blocks away shows the suspects then opening fire at a landscaper who wasn't injured. Both shooters then later found dead of self-inflicted gunshot wounds. Tonight, sources say the suspects are 17-year-old Kane Clark, a high school wrestler, and 18-year-old Caleb Vasquez. The FBI says they met and were radicalized online and shared a broad hatred of different races and religions. The live stream appears to show them wearing neo-Nazi symbols.
I can confirm there has been a manifesto that's been recovered. They didn't discriminate on who they hated.
Police say the 17-year-old suspect's mother had called police 2 hours before the shooting, fearing he was suicidal, saying her weapons and vehicle were missing, setting off a manhunt before the attack. And tonight, the daughter of that hero security guard who was killed, speaking out.
My father, my dad. He was a loving father, husband, son, brother, and uncle. To me, my dad was a role model. He was a best friend. He was the best, absolute best dad in the world. He was my protector.
And David, we have just learned from sources that a person previously reported the 18-year-old suspect in this case, and police made contact with him. They were reported that he was interested in extremism and mass casualty attacks. David.
So many grateful to that hero security guard tonight. Trevor Ault, thank you. Meantime, here in New York City tonight, the horrific and deadly scene in Midtown Manhattan. A woman opening her car door and falling, disappearing down an open manhole, falling several feet below into intense heat. Witnesses could hear her screaming, "I'm dying." How this happened, and here's our chief investigative correspondent, Katersky now.
Tonight, the horrific scene in Midtown Manhattan where a 56-year-old mother and grandmother fell to her death through an uncovered manhole. Donna K. Gosage parked her Mercedes SUV in front of Cartier and atop the open manhole, stepping from the car and dropping 10 feet.
As soon as she stepped out, it's like she took one step forward and just disappeared.
The medical examiner's office is still investigating the woman's death, but police said when she fell through the hole, she went into cardiac arrest from the intense steam heat. Witnesses describing her cries for help.
She was screaming, "I'm dying." That's what I kept hearing her screaming over and over, "I'm dying."
Tonight, the utility responsible for the manhole says the cover was dislodged after a multi-axle truck turning onto 52nd Street from 5th Avenue drove over it. 12 minutes later, the suburban grandmother parked in that spot. Con Edison said while this is a rare occurrence, manhole covers can get displaced by heavy vehicles. Our thoughts remain with her family, and safety remains our top priority. The mayor's office is promising a full investigation tonight, David, but so far police believe this was a tragic accident and something every New York City pedestrian fears. David?
It is just horrific. Katersky, thank you. Also breaking tonight, severe storms across multiple states. Millions of Americans right now on alert for dangerous thunderstorms, damaging winds coming tonight. At least 19 reported tornadoes in 5 states already. Those new storms now coming. And record heat in the Northeast right through tomorrow now. Record set in Philadelphia today. Intense heat tonight from New York City right up to Boston. Chief meteorologist Ginger Z now with the forecast and the images tonight.
It's on the ground right there.
Tonight, the terrifying images of this twister in Kansas, spotted by AccuWeather chasers. Just one of at least 19 reported overnight. An incredible streak, 7 nights in a row, and another dangerous night ahead. We saw the damage when the sun came up in Holton.
Of the more than 300 severe storm reports in the last 24 hours, that dented and collapsed top of a silo that used to be towering, now all of the contents spilled here, and the barn behind the tree shredded from these storms.
Meanwhile, the East Coast is sweltering. 98 in Philadelphia, an all-time May record. 96 in Boston, 93 in New York City. And in the West, multiple new fires breaking out tonight. The Bain fire east of Los Angeles forcing families to flee. Multiple people reportedly injured. And some 750 firefighters battling the Sandy fire outside Los Angeles that exploded Monday. Winds and heat fueling the flames again tonight.
A country of extremes for sure. Let's get right back to Ginger with us tonight and the forecast. Hi, Ginger.
Hi, David. A congested line of severe thunderstorms with damaging wind from Ontario, Canada, down to Henryville, Indiana right now. We'll watch that progress east, but there's a new watch up for San Angelo and down into Del Rio. That's for hail up to 2.5 inches in diameter, winds over 70 miles per hour. That same front will bring these storms east as we go through tonight. We track it and time it. It's New York City, down through the mid-Atlantic, and even Boston by tomorrow afternoon and evening. That is the very front that will be breaking this heat apart because we cannot stay with these records. But tomorrow you'll do it again from Boston to Philadelphia in the 90s, Richmond to 98 degrees before we all take a major slide by almost 30 degrees for the weekend, David.
All right, 24 hours more of this intense heat. Ginger, we'll see you first thing in the morning. Thanks. Tonight here, alarming new developments in this deadly Ebola outbreak. That American doctor infected has now been raced to Germany for emergency medical care. The team racing him out wearing protective gear from head to toe as the number of cases now spikes. Here's ABC's Faith Abube.
Tonight, that American doctor, a father of 4 who was infected with the Ebola virus while working in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, now on his way to Germany for medical care.
Everybody in the ambulance was wearing what they call full PPE, the personal protective equipment, the suits, the boots, the goggles, the gloves. So there's not 1 centimeter of exposed skin.
The Christian Missions Organization Surge says Dr. Peter Stafford was transported onto the plane in a protective bubble.
We saw pictures of him in a plastic bubble about the size of a casket that I think is ventilated for him.
The doctor's family and another doctor also possibly exposed but showing no symptoms. Symptoms of the Ebola virus can start with fever, muscle weakness, and headaches, then progress to internal bleeding and possible death. Tonight, the number of suspected deaths in Central Africa tied to Ebola rising to at least 130 people. Suspected cases skyrocketing to more than 500.
And David, the CDC insists there are no Ebola cases here on U.S. soil, but they are urging doctors across the country to screen symptomatic patients who recently visited the outbreak area. David.
Faith Abube with us tonight. Faith, thank you. We turn now to President Trump and his taxes and the extraordinary order now from the Justice Department, now barring the IRS from investigating President Trump, his sons, and their companies. It comes as the Trump administration also defends tonight the Justice Department's new fund, paid for by taxpayers, $1.8 billion, to compensate Trump allies, including some January 6 defendants. Here's Jon Karl.
Tonight, in an extraordinary move, the Justice Department declared the IRS is, quote, forever barred and precluded from auditing President Trump, his family, his oldest sons, and their companies, or pursuing any claims for past actions. It's part of the unprecedented settlement after President Trump dropped his $10 billion lawsuit against the IRS. The deal was orchestrated by the head of the DOJ, Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche, who is Trump's former personal attorney. Blanche faced tough questions on Capitol Hill today.
You're the president's consigliere.
Your perspective is completely wrong, Senator.
Well,
respectfully.
I think the facts will prove me right.
The president's settlement also creates a nearly $1.8 billion fund, taxpayer money, to pay for Trump allies or anyone else who claims they were mistreated by the Biden Justice Department. It's a group that includes the roughly 600 people charged with obstructing or assaulting police on January 6th.
Will individuals who assaulted Capitol Hill police officers be eligible for this fund?
Well, as it makes plain, anybody is
just let me know if they're eligible for the fund.
Anybody in this country is eligible to apply if they believe they were victim of weaponization.
At the White House, I followed up with Vice President J.D. Vance.
I assume you're not going to apply and you don't think you should get money out of this fund. Of course. So isn't it just as easy to say that people that attacked police officers should not get taxpayer money from this fund?
Well, look, John, we're not trying to give money to anybody who attacked a police officer. We're trying to we're trying to compensate people where the book was thrown at them. They were mistreated by the legal system. We do have people who were accused of attacking law enforcement officers. That doesn't mean that we're going to completely ignore some of the claims that they're going to make.
It's a very complex building. It comes as Republicans are trying to set aside another $1 billion in taxpayer money for President Trump's new ballroom. They say it's for security. The president taking reporters on a tour of the construction site today.
Being paid for out of pocket, but why is Congress in pocket? Explain sort of the difference.
Well, they're not. Congress is approving. Congress is approving money for security. Some of it may go here for additional security. I don't know.
Back to that $1.8 billion fund, some of which could go to people who attacked the Capitol building on January 6th. It's not just Democrats who don't like it. Senate Republican leader John Thune said today, quote, "I am not a big fan."
Jon Karl with us. John, thank you. Tonight to that horrific murder case in New Jersey, a man convicted of killing his own brother and his brother's wife and children, then setting their home on fire. Then setting his own home on fire, his family inside, to make it look like the whole family had been targeted. What the judge has now decided in this case. Here's Stephanie Ramos.
Tonight, a New Jersey man convicted of killing his brother and his brother's wife and children sentenced to life in prison without parole. 59-year-old Paul Canero was convicted in February of fatally shooting his brother Keith and stabbing Keith's wife and their 2 children, just 8 and 11 years old, at their family home in 2018 before lighting the home on fire. Prosecutors say he then traveled to his own home and lit it on fire. His wife and 2 daughters still inside to make it seem the extended family had been targeted. Canero's family was unharmed. At the sentencing hearing today, a county judge calling Canero a heartless, brutal killer.
These children experienced imaginable fear in the final moments of their lives as their uncle relentlessly pursued and attacked them.
Prosecutors say Canero was motivated by jealousy of his brother's financial success and in an attempt to conceal years of theft from a family company.
Paul Canero will spend the rest of his natural life behind the walls of a prison, never to see the light of day.
Canero was sentenced to 4 consecutive life terms for the murders, along with additional sentences on charges including arson and weapons possession. David.
Stephanie Ramos reporting. Thank you. Tonight, dramatic new images showing the fiery crash of that UPS cargo plane in Louisville. The NTSB releasing new surveillance now showing the left engine right there tearing off the wing. Just seconds after takeoff, you'll remember 15 people were killed. Investigators say components connecting the engine to the wing showed signs of cracking. Tonight, major primaries being watched right now. President Trump taking aim at one of his top political targets, Republican Congressman Thomas Massie of Kentucky. Let's bring in Jay O'Brien tonight. Jay.
David, Republican Congressman Thomas Massie of Kentucky was President Trump's #1 political target this year. Massie now losing that primary. Trump was furious at Massie for his push to release the Epstein files, his opposition to the war with Iran. Trump even personally campaigning for Massie's primary challenger, ex-Navy SEAL Ed Gowrine. This was the most expensive primary in House history, upwards of $32 million spent. And before the polls closed, Massie telling me that no matter what happens, he will continue to speak his mind, even if that means crossing the president. David.
Jay O'Brien, thank you. When we come back, the desperate search on the east coast of the ocean, a missing swimmer, dozens of people making a human chain to try to help in this search. Also ahead here, the Lyft driver now accusing riders of damaging his car. The photos he used as proof, authorities say made with artificial intelligence, a warning for all riders. And what's now been spotted tonight in a national park for the first time in more than 100 years. A lot more news ahead. Don't go away. Tonight, the 24-hour search now for a missing swimmer off Ocean City, New Jersey. Beach Patrol rescued one person, but a 20-year-old with him, struck by a wave falling off a boogie board, was swept away. In the first hours, dozens were seen forming a human chain from the beach trying to help. So far, no sign of the swimmer. Overseas tonight, after President Trump's summit in China, now it's Vladimir Putin being welcomed by President Xi. It was just last week when President Trump stepped off Air Force One, children waving Chinese and American flags. Look at this. Putin receiving a similar welcome just today, greeted by Chinese children waving Chinese and Russian flags, now there for a summit with its ally, China. When we come back tonight, the Lyft driver accusing riders of damaging his vehicle using artificial intelligence to come up with photos, a warning to all riders, and what's been seen in a national park for the first time in 100 years. To the Index, a father from Boca Raton, Florida, claiming a Lyft driver used AI photos to falsely accuse his teen daughters of damaging his car, charging a $75 fee. They sent the father photos, but at the bottom right, the Gemini logo. Now, Gemini is Google's AI assistant that can generate false images. Lyft has now apologized and blocked the driver from their app. Tonight, last call for Schlitz beer. The final batch will be brewed in Wisconsin this weekend after 177 years. Marketed for years as, quote, the beer that made Milwaukee famous. When we come back tonight, the remarkable sight. The first time in more than 100 years this has been seen in a national park. Finally tonight here, the remarkable return to Sequoia National Park. Tonight, what hasn't been seen in more than a century, now marking an historic return in Sequoia National Park in California. The first time in more than 100 years, a gray wolf has been recorded there. The 3-year-old female wolf has been tracked by scientists and by wildlife groups, including the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. Gray wolves are a protected endangered species in the state, gone from California since the 1920s. They began returning in 2011. Tonight, the new milestone, the first publicly known gray wolf in Sequoia National Park in more than 100 years. The gray wolves return. I'm David Muir. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Good night.
David Muir, the most trusted anchor in America, the most watched anchor in America. Thank you for making World News Tonight with David Muir the #1 newscast in America.